Welcome to Stories of Brave Mothers, a channel dedicated to telling real and touching stories of brave mothers from around the world.
Abandoned with no money, no support, and a small child, Monique heard everything a black single mother is tired of hearing. You won't make it. But she picked up her old phone, strapped her baby to her back, and started offering cleaning services, door to door. That simple decision became the beginning of a revolution, because instead of becoming another statistic, she became a leader. And instead of silence, she raised voices. This is the story of a brave mother who changed hundreds of lives, starting with her own. Monique was born in southern Georgia, in a neighborhood where dreams were almost always postponed by bills, injustice, and days that started too early and ended too late. Since she was little, she watched her mother leave for work before sunrise to work as a nursing assistant and come back exhausted but smiling, even with aching feet and heavy eyes. Growing up in that cramped house, where every penny was accounted for, Monique learned that being a poor black woman in the United States meant you had to be twice as good to be seen halfway. But not even that difficult childhood prepared Monique for what was to come. She met Darren back in school. He was charismatic, funny, had that charm of someone who promises the world with a smile. They started dating, and for a while, she believed she had finally found someone who understood her pain and her dreams. When she got pregnant at 22, she thought it would be the beginning of a new chapter. Difficult, yes, but together. But what began with promises turned into silence. Darren changed. With every ultrasound, every baby kick, he pulled further away. Until one night, with few words and not even a glance, he walked out. No money, no explanation, no care. She stayed, alone. 7 months pregnant, behind on rent, with an almost empty fridge and a phone that rang less and less. At the hospital, after a long, exhausting labor, she held little Jalen in her arms with a mix of fear and love so strong, it tied her chest in knots. No one came, no visitors, no gifts, no father, just her, a kind nurse, and the cries of the life that had just arrived. Back home, everything felt even quieter. Monique looked around the tiny studio she shared with cockroaches and wondered how she was going to make it. The crib was borrowed, the diapers were donated, and the lights hadn't been cut off only because the next-door neighbor, a retired gentleman named Mr. Harris, paid the bill in secret. She tried turning to family. Her mother, already ill, lived far away and couldn't help. Her aunt said she had to be strong, but none showed up with a plate of food. And her friends, well, they vanished as if motherhood were contagious. Desperation hit hard one cold morning when Monique opened her wallet and found only a few coins. The formula was almost gone. Rent was overdue. Jalen had a fever, and she didn't even know where to start. It was at that moment, on the edge between despair and rage, that something inside her shifted. She looked at her son, eyes full of tears, and softly said, "I don't know how, but you'll never go through what I went through." That night, with Jalen sleeping on her chest and the cold wind seeping through the poorly sealed window, Monique grabbed her old phone and started searching for any kind of job she could do. She saw a cleaning ad called "No Answer," sent a message. Nothing. But she didn't stop. She sent 10, 20, 50 messages to local Facebook groups, Craigslist, neighborhood apps. She wrote, "I'm a single mom, and I need work. I clean carefully and responsibly. Please, give me a chance." The next day, a woman replied. A nurse named Erica needed someone to clean her apartment after her daughter's birthday party. Monique had no cleaning supplies, no transportation, no proper clothes, but she went anyway. Took 2 rags, a small bottle of expired dish soap, wrapped Jalen in a makeshift sling from an old sheet, and walked nearly 7 kilometers to the job. She arrived tired, sweaty, and scared of being turned away. But Erica opened the door, looked at her and the baby in her arms, and simply said, "If you had the courage to come all the way here like this, you already have my respect." Monique cleaned every inch of that apartment like it was her own home, not just for the money, but because in that space, she was starting something, a little seed of dignity. Erica was so impressed she took a picture of Monique cleaning with Jalen, asleep in the sling, and posted it on social media with the caption, "If you need someone trustworthy to clean your house and want to support a brave mother, hire Monique." The photo went viral in the neighborhood. In less than a week, she got over 15 messages asking for quotes. And just like that, between bottles and bleach, something was born. Something Monique didn't even know yet. Her path to overcoming. She started doing one house a day, then two. Sometimes, with Jalen in her arms. Other times, when she could. She left him with Mr. Harris for a few hours. Each new client was a chance to prove she was more than a tired mom. She was efficient, polite, detail-oriented. She transformed spaces, but more importantly, she transformed perspectives. Because every time someone saw Monique arrive with a baby and still do an impeccable job, the image of a single Black mother shifted just a bit. She wasn't asking for charity. She was offering value. Over time, Monique realized that many of the women she knew were in the same situation, alone, without support, just needing a chance. Then she had an idea. What if she taught other moms to do the same? What if, together, they formed a network? The first weeks as a cleaner were intense. Monique woke up before sunrise, made a bottle, secured Jalen in the makeshift sling, and walked through Atlanta's outskirts. Sometimes she walked over an hour to get to a job, with aching feet and a throbbing back. But she went, because now, it wasn't just for her. It was for him, for Jalen, for every child who deserved a whole mother, not one crushed by statistics. With Erica's help, the nurse who had been her first client, Monique learned how to promote herself better online. She posted photos, asked for reviews, replied kindly and quickly. Her clientele began to grow, and with that came the first requests from other women in the neighborhood asking, "Do you know if there's room for me too? I need it." That's when Monique saw an opportunity bigger than herself. She created a WhatsApp group called Cleaning Moms and added 4 women, Keisha, Tamara, Rosa, and Alia, all single moms, all unemployed, all tired of being told they wouldn't make it. Monique taught them the basics she had learned: how to schedule jobs, how to charge, how to treat clients, how to maintain posture and cleanliness without losing their humanity. The group grew fast. Within 3 months, there were over 20 women, and somehow, without even realizing it, Monique had created a support and work network among mothers who had only each other. But just when everything seemed to be picking up, the biggest challenges began. The first came disguised as an opportunity. A traditional cleaning company, noticing the group's momentum, offered to help formalize their work. They promised uniforms, transport, supplies, and even a shared office. But there was a hidden clause in the contract. 40% of everything they earned would go to the company. Monique read that contract with a heavy heart. It was tempting. The moms were tired. Many didn't have supplies or even decent shoes to work. The offer felt like relief, but something felt wrong. She gathered the group and said, "They want a profit off our need. But if we accept that kind of help, we'll just be exploited again. We're not here to trade one boss for another." Some women disagreed, said she was being prideful. 5 accepted the company's offer and left the group. Monique cried that night, with Jalen sleeping beside her, feeling like she'd lost a part of her soul. But deep down, she knew keeping their principles mattered more than growing fast. The second challenge came when the apartment she lived in was sold. With no fixed contract and poor credit, Monique was evicted with 30 days to leave. She had nowhere to go, spent nights searching for temporary shelter, stayed 3 weeks in a church member's basement, and still didn't miss a single day of work. Jalen, now almost 2, could walk, talk, and followed his mother everywhere like a loving shadow. He was too little to understand why they kept moving, but old enough to notice his mom was always tired. One day, as he played with an empty container on the floor of a makeshift laundry room, he asked for the first time, "Mommy, are you sad?" Monique froze, sat beside him, hugged him tight, and said, voice cracking, "Mommy's fighting, but we're going to win, my love." The third challenge came when one of the group's women had a domestic accident and had to stop working for months. No income, no insurance, small kids. She spiraled. Monique gathered everyone and proposed something new, a solidarity fund. Each mom, even earning little, would contribute $5 a week. This fund would be used for emergencies, an improvised insurance between women the system had forgotten. At first, it was hard. Some hesitated, but slowly, the fund grew and saved. There, between cleanings, diaper changes, and shared food baskets, Monique and her network created something no money could buy: trust. But even with all of that, the biggest challenge was still ahead. Monique was invited to share her story at a local women entrepreneurs event. It would be her first time speaking in public. She almost said no. Said she wasn't that kind of woman, that she didn't know how to speak, that she wasn't educated, that her voice shook. But Erica, always sharp, replied firmly, "You're not just a woman who cleans houses. You're a woman who clears paths, and the world needs to hear you." Heart racing, Monique stepped onto a small stage in a public library, in front of 50 people. She spoke with a trembling voice, eyes full of memories, and shaky hands. But she spoke. She talked about abandonment, about the old phone, about her first client, and about the group of women who now cleaned homes. Yes, but also rewrote their stories. When she stepped off the stage, strangers hugged her. People said, "My mom went through that. You reminded me of my grandma. My brother left his girl with a baby, and I never understood what she went through." And in the middle of those embraces, Monique understood. Her fight wasn't just hers. It was thousands. It was generational. But with visibility came criticism. Some began saying she was showing off, that she should know her place. Even false reports came in, accusing the group of working illegally. She was afraid, deeply afraid, because now it wasn't just her survival at stake. It was her name, her reputation, the dream of so many mothers who believed in her. But how could she back down now? How could she stop after starting to change so many lives? She gathered the group and said firmly, "If they want to investigate, let them. We're not doing anything wrong. We're making history." And it was at that point that, even with all the challenges, the movement began to gain momentum beyond the neighborhood. A local NGO became interested in the initiative. A journalist told the story in a small community newspaper. And, without Monique even imagining it, something even bigger was about to happen. Monique never imagined her story would go beyond her neighborhood, that the calloused hands that once scrubbed floors with expired detergent would become a symbol of strength, inspiration, and change. The community newspaper article went viral. Within days, a local influencer shared the piece with the caption, "This is what real entrepreneurship looks like." A Black single mom creating jobs, dignity, and hope. With that, the Cleaning Moms group began receiving messages from across the state, from mothers in similar situations, from women wanting to help, from curious companies, even from TV reporters. And when a television station called asking to do a special report on Monique and her network of women, she froze. The first thing she thought was, is this real? On the day of the shoot, she wore her only new blouse, bought on clearance for $3. Jalen ran between the cameras, laughing and playing with a toy car she had found in the trash and fixed with tape. She trembled inside, but her eyes smiled with strength. The story aired on a Saturday night. For 3 minutes, the country saw a different kind of story. Not that of a victim, but of a brave mother who refused to play a supporting role and took center stage in a quiet, yet powerful, revolution. After that night, everything changed. Companies began offering partnerships. This time, with respect. A cleaning product brand reached out to donate supplies in exchange for visibility. A local hardware store offered support to set up a small support and training center. And most surprising of all, a community college sent her a letter offering a full scholarship to study business management. She cried reading those words, because for years she'd been told she wasn't good enough, that she had no education, that a Black single mom should take whatever she could get. And now, they were saying she could lead, teach, run a business, that she deserved more. Her first class was hard. She barely understood the terms, felt out of place, older than everyone, like she didn't belong. But, as always, she took a deep breath and kept going. By the end of the semester, she was one of the top students in the class. Meanwhile, the group of moms kept growing. It was no longer just about cleaning. It was about empowerment, about dignity. Monique started hosting weekly meetings to teach what she was learning in college. She talked about managing finances, how to talk to clients, how to protect themselves from exploitative offers. Over 70 women joined the group in under a year. Some started their own networks in other neighborhoods. Others went back to school. One became a mobile hairdresser, offering cuts for mums with small children. Another, who had always loved to cook, began selling homemade meals to women in the network. What Monique built wasn't just a group, it was an ecosystem. A space where women who had once been invisible became the protagonists of their own stories. But even with all the success, she never forgot where she came from. One afternoon, she went back to the first apartment where she had lived with Jalen. The building was now abandoned, with broken windows and graffiti. She stood there in silence, staring at the rusted door where she had once cried from hunger and fear. She held her son's hand. He was nearly 5 now, curious, chatty, full of questions. He looked at his mom and asked, "Is this where we started?" And she, with teary eyes, replied, "It is. And I never let us come back." In that moment, she understood. True victory wasn't in contracts or interviews. It was there, in that healthy, smiling boy, full of life. It was in the certainty that, despite everything, she had kept her promise. Jalen would never go through what she had. One of the most powerful moments came when she was invited to speak at a national women's entrepreneurship event in New York. It was her first time on a plane, her first time in the big city, her first time carrying not buckets and rags, but the beautiful weight of a story that needed to be told. She stepped onto the stage with her hair braided by one of the moms in the group. She wore donated clothes, altered by the community seamstress, and with a steady voice, she said before hundreds of people, "I'm not an exception. I'm just a woman who refused to be invisible. And my story proves that when a mother rises, no oppressive system can hold her back." The audience gave her a standing ovation. After the talk, an investor approached and offered to fund the project's expansion into other states. She humbly thanked him and said, "If we're going to grow, it'll be our way, at our pace, without erasing who we are." Today, Monique leads an organization called Rise Moms, which has already helped more than 300 single mothers gain financial and emotional independence. The model has been replicated in other cities. The Solidarity Fund became a stable emergency support program, and for the first time, she was able to finance the purchase of a home. Small, simple, but hers. A real home. Jalen now attends a top-rated public school. Says he wants to be a teacher. And every time he sees someone cleaning a sidewalk, he stops, smiles, and says, "My mom used to do that, and she's amazing." Monique stays grounded, still cleans sometimes, by choice, to remember where she came from. But above all, to remember that every clean floor can be the beginning of a brilliant future, because she understood that brave mothers don't just survive. They build, they inspire, they change the world, starting with the world of their children. And if anyone still doubts that, just look at Monique and see what happens when courage puts on an apron and love becomes a revolution. If this story touched your heart, take a deep breath, because what Monique lived through, thousands of other mothers face in silence every single day. Stories like this need to be told, not just to move us, but to inspire us. So if you believe in the strength of brave mothers, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs hope. Every click helps give voice to incredible women who, even with the world against them, continue to rise. You're part of this.